Have you ever wondered why the price of goods and services increase over time? This phenomenon is no mystery, but a widely recognized economic concept known as inflation. Inflation reflects the rise in general levels of prices over a certain period. It's like a tide that gradually lifts all ships. But instead of boats, it's the cost of everything from a loaf of bread to a new car. But why does inflation occur? Well, it's a byproduct of economic growth. Moderate inflation is not only normal, it's necessary. It encourages spending and investment, which helps to fuel the economy. However, when inflation runs too high, it can erode your purchasing power and diminish the value of your savings. So it's clear that inflation isn't just about rising prices. It's a complex and powerful economic force influenced by several factors, shaping our financial lives in ways seen and unseen. Inflation is more than just rising prices. It's a complex economic concept influenced by several factors. One of the main factors influencing inflation is what we call demand-pull inflation. This economic phenomenon occurs when the demand for goods and services outpaces the supply. It's akin to a tug-of-war, with demand pulling prices up when supply cannot keep pace. Think about it like this. When consumer spending increases, demand surges. If production doesn't ramp up accordingly, prices rise to balance the scales. The same applies to government spending. If the government injects money into the economy without a corresponding increase in production, we may see a rise in prices. Similarly, investment spending can trigger demand pull inflation. If businesses invest heavily in capital goods, without consideration for the production capacity, the increased demand can cause prices to rise. So, you see, demand pull inflation is a dance between demand and supply, a dance that determines the price we pay for goods and services. Demand pull inflation shows how our collective spending habits can drive up prices. Another key factor that influences inflation is cost push inflation. Now, this is a type of inflation that's not driven by a surge in demand, but by an increase in the costs to produce goods and services. You see, when the cost of production rises, perhaps due to an increase in wages or the price of raw materials, producers are often left with no choice but to pass these additional costs onto consumers in the form of higher prices. Take the price of bread, for instance. If the cost of wheat goes up, a baker may need to charge more for a loaf to maintain their profit margin. This, in turn, may lead to a general rise in prices throughout the economy, a phenomenon we know as inflation. So it's not just about demand and supply, sometimes it's the cost behind the scenes that are driving up prices. So when production costs go up, so do prices. That's cost push inflation. Now let's discuss the third factor, known as built-in inflation. This intriguing form of inflation is not driven by current economic conditions, but rather by our expectations of what the future holds. Essentially, built-in inflation is the expectation that prices will rise in the future. This expectation can stem from a fascinating source: our past experiences with inflation. If we've seen prices continually rise in the past, it's quite natural to expect that trend to continue. This is what economists refer to as adaptive expectations. However, these adaptive expectations can create a self-perpetuating cycle, where the expectation of inflation leads to higher prices, which then fuels further inflation expectations. It's a bit like a snowball rolling down a hill, growing ever larger as it picks up more snow. It's important to understand that this type of inflation can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, driving up prices simply because we expect them to rise. Therefore, managing expectations can be a critical tool in controlling inflation. Built-in inflation can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, driving up prices simply because we expect them to rise. To wrap up, we've learned that inflation is influenced by demand pull, cost push, and built-in factors. We've delved into these key influences, but what does it all boil down to? What is the impact of inflation on you, me, and the wider economy? Well, inflation is a bit of a double-edged sword. On one side, a moderate amount of inflation is indeed necessary for economic progress. It can stimulate spending and investment, fueling growth. On the other side, when inflation accelerates beyond control, it can erode our purchasing power, making everyday goods and services more expensive. It can gnaw at our savings, leaving us with less for our future. But here's the silver lining. By understanding these effects, we can prepare and protect ourselves. We can make more informed financial decisions, adapt our saving and spending habits, and even anticipate future economic trends. Understanding inflation helps us make informed financial decisions and anticipate future economic trends, so keep an eye on those prices. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of inflation in Inflation Uncovered, a deep dive into the 4 factors. If you found this video enlightening and it helped you understand the complex world of inflation, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Big Price Drops. By doing so, you'll be the first to know when we release new videos breaking down the intricacies of economic trends. For more in-depth information, visit our website. You'll find a wealth of resources designed to further your understanding of these complex financial concepts, helping you to make the best possible decisions for your financial future. Stay tuned for more insightful videos on economic trends. Until next time, remember to keep an eye on those prices and let's navigate the world of economics together.